Many fairy tales and the traditions that surround them are diluted versions of upsetting historical occurrences. Even some adults may find these scarier tales too disturbing for today's small children. Their horrifying origins, which frequently entail very heinous events, are rife with terrible lessons that is both sophisticated and extreme. Let's see the real stories behind fairy tales Part 2. Cinderella. The story of Perrault's blonde, fair-skinned, abused beauty has some loose parallels to the life of Rhodopis, a Greek woman whose name means rosy-cheeked. She was taken captive in Thrace as a young girl, sold into slavery approximately 500 BC, and sent to Egypt. Her master lavished her with presents, including a pair of golden shoes, because of her unique appearance, which made her a prized commodity. The pharaoh Ahmose too observed these shoes and Rhodopis. She had to become one of his wives, he insisted. She wouldn't be his primary, respected partner because she wasn't of royal lineage, but she would still carry out ceremonial duties and mostly be available to satisfy Ahmose in other ways. Did her newly discovered status grant her enduring happiness? Most likely not. Beauty and the Beast. In 1537 there was a young boy named Petrus Gonsalves who was regularly called a beast. Reportedly, this was most likely because he had a case of hypertrichosis, a condition that causes a person to grow hair all over their body, often referred to as werewolf syndrome. Gonsalves was just 10 years old when he was taken from his native country, Spain, and sent to the King of France to operate as a type of court jester. King Henry decided to take on Gonsalves as his little pet project. The king groomed Gonsalves to be a nobleman. Eventually, King Henry's wife, Catherine de' Medici, who took over after the king died, found Gonsalves a wife, coincidentally another woman named Catherine. Though it took some getting used to, the beauty fell in love with the Beast. They were married for 40 years and had 7 kids together, 4 of which also had hypertrichosis. Little Red Riding Hood. The origins of Little Red Riding Hood can be traced back to various folk tales from Europe and Asia, but one of the most well-known versions is Charles Perrault's tale. In Perrault's version, the story ends with the wolf devouring Little Red Riding Hood, but in the Brothers Grimm's version, a hunter saves her and her grandmother. However, the darker and more violent versions of the story suggest that it was originally meant as a warning to young girls about the dangers of talking to strangers and being lured away from their families. The Ugly Duckling. The ugly duckling spends much of its time alone, feeling sad and rejected. However, as the story progresses, the little bird grows and changes, eventually transforming into a beautiful swan. The other animals are amazed by the swan's beauty and grace, and the ugly duckling finally finds acceptance and happiness among its new family. The story of the ugly duckling is often seen as a metaphor for the human experience of feeling like an outsider or a misfit. Hans Christian Andersen, the author of the original story, is believed to have drawn on his own experiences of struggling with dyslexia and feeling like an outsider in his own family. The Little Mermaid. The original story of The Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen is much darker than the Disney version. In the original, the mermaid falls in love with a human prince and gives up her voice to the sea witch, in exchange for legs. The prince eventually marries someone else, and the mermaid is faced with the choice of killing him and return to the sea or dissolving into sea foam. She ultimately chooses the second and becomes an ethereal spirit. The story is said to be a metaphor for Andersen's unrequited love for a fellow male Danish ballet dancer, named Edvard Collin. These are some of the true stories that are behind fairy tales that children still read. Are they true? Are they not? Who knows after all these years? But, for us adults, they give another dimension and read them again maybe differently. Thank you for watching our video, and if you enjoyed it, please consider to like and subscribe.